Welcome to another episode of eCom Experiences, a podcast for e-commerce marketing leaders who want to grow and scale their brands faster. Join us as we interview some of the smartest brand founders and marketing leaders in the industry. Explore the lessons they learned, discover the keys to their success, and discuss what excites them most about the future.
Hi, it's Samir Balwani here, host of eCom Experiences, where we talk to brand founders and marketing leaders about their experiences growing brands. This episode is brought to you by Query. Query is a paid media agency that helps brands balance brand awareness and performance marketing to drive predictable and profitable growth. To learn more about how we can help you, visit weareqry.com. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Katie Buczek, the senior national account manager at Totes Isotoner here. She's super smart, has a lot to share, and excited to have you. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Samir. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat because there's so much to unpack, and the brand is something I think touches a lot of people. So can you tell us about the brand, what the product is, how you got started there?
Sure, of course. So I'm with Totes Isotoner, and we are the world's leading manufacturer of umbrellas, slippers, and gloves. Our business has been very strong. We've got three very strong nationally regarded brands. Totes, which has a long history in umbrellas. Totes also has developed rubber footwear, which we'll talk about with our own proprietary technology, which has been very interesting. Our Isotoner national brand is known for comfort footwear, meaning slippers. So women's and men's slippers, as well as gloves. And we've got a super rich history and heritage there with that product. And then our Acorn slipper brand is a premium slipper brand, definitely a little bit more niche, and we resonate well with the outdoor consumer, and also a very strong e-commerce brand.
Awesome.
So very exciting products there.
There's a lot going on, all different, like almost categories, different consumer sets, it seems like, different pain points. So tell me, what's your favorite part about the role, knowing that it spans so much?
Mm-hmm. My favorite part about the role, there's always something new to kind of take on. So obviously our Q4 is, traditional October, November, December is extremely important to us. We do the great majority of our business there. So it's extremely busy, lots going on. But then once you get through that, a lot of the country has had a pretty cold January and February, at least in 2024 we did. So we can still see a nice long tail of business when it comes to gloves and even slippers then. And then we quickly get into the warmer months where we've got, first of all, the country can have typically heavy rainfall in the spring. Yeah. So we can see a lot of demand for umbrellas. And then, like I said, with our sandal product that we've got in Totes, that's been a really nice win in the months that we're currently in. So the spring and summer. So seeing some goodness there has been very exciting.
That's really interesting. I love the business because it is so dependent on weather. And I'm kind of curious, is it dependent on the expectation of weather, or is it weather? So is it, if it rains for 3 days in a row, do people start to buy umbrellas, or do they see the weather forecast and buy them? That I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, we obviously are extremely weather dependent. And so most everybody at Totes Isotoner is like an expert on the weather, which is kind of cool and a little bit nerdy, but that's okay. We like it. When it comes to what we see with consumption, it's usually very close in.
Interesting.
So if we have, like, June can be a typically very rainy month. And so it's typically quite close in that we see consumption. But depending on kind of like what we've done with advertising, what we've done with marketing, what we've done with our communication to consumers, we can get early demand based on kind of what they're calling for the weather. So for the holiday season and the winter of 2023, into early 2024, they predicted a very cold winter. And we did get the cold, but it came late. It came pretty much after Christmas. But our glove demand in e-commerce was strong, basically October forward. And it's not cold in October.
Yeah.
It's usually lovely, 50s and 60s for a lot of the country. So that was really a strong push for us. This coming, actually almost starting very soon here in 2024 through about September and October, they're predicting an extremely impactful hurricane season,
Yeah.
which obviously is very, very serious. And we see major demand for umbrellas when we have a strong hurricane season. When I first started here 10 years ago, I was like, aren't people worried about batteries and bottles of water? Why are they buying umbrellas? They're not
Umbrellas. Yeah.
but it's absolutely something we see very, very strong demand for. So we're working with our retail partners now to make sure they've got inventory, remind them, make sure to pull it out into the front of the floor for brick and mortar locations. And then obviously for e-commerce, making sure that we've got our spend allocated appropriately, inventory allocated, all of that kind of thing.
That's really interesting. And then so I know that that's like umbrellas, but what about the Acorn side? Does that follow kind of the same path as well?
Acorn would follow more with slippers. So that's all the comfort footwear there. Slippers aren't quite as dependent upon having a very cold winter. We'll see, some peak from that, but slippers also make such a great gifting, beautiful, special gift for, your mom, your wife, whoever. So it's not quite as weather dependent for both Acorn slippers and Isotoner slippers.
That's so interesting. I love the nuances amongst each brand. A lot of marketers have like their one brand and then are able to break up segments and find nuance within. And you kind of have this umbrella of brand. Oh, how funny! Umbrella of brands that you have to manage and understand the consumers within each. I'm really curious. I'm sure with everything, there's a lot of challenges. What are the biggest challenges that you're managing right now or feeling the pressures of?
Sure. So a couple of big items in terms of challenges right now. Definitely tons of competition on the platforms, and thinking specifically of Amazon, lots of random brands out there that are not nationally known brands, but are very, very competitive in our space. So be it umbrellas and slippers, gloves, it's always been a dogfight, and it seems to get even tougher and tougher and tougher with every single year and every single season. CPCs, get really high and trying to figure out how are we going to scale our spend and make sure that we're reaching all of the different audiences that we want to when there is so much competition. So kind of as a counter to that, one thing that we've found that's worked that isn't something that we leaned into as much historically has been promotions. So really making sure to lean into various Amazon events, even their smaller events, like they have their Memorial Day sale that went on. They had a Mother's Day. They had their spring days back in March or so. So leaning into those has brought some goodness and some volume that we wouldn't have expected and hadn't really played there before. So kind of leaning in a little bit and seeing some of that work and take off some of the pressure from all the competition has been very, very helpful.
And how do you guys balance the Amazon sale going on sale on Amazon versus your wholesale partners versus your e-com, your D2C business itself? When you go on sale on Amazon, is the expectation that you're kind of on sale everywhere, or is it very multifaceted?
It is multifaceted. And obviously we've got to be very careful when it comes to segmentation and what's going on in various channels. So we've worked closely as a cross-functional team among both the salespeople and with leadership to make sure that we can grow in each of our retail partners, but also not create conflict. So it's not easy by any means, but it's something that's extremely important to the organization.
Because I would imagine that channel conflict is probably a major issue for you, and especially with just the amount of distribution you have and the ease of finding a Totes umbrella.
Sure.
And it is interesting because I'm outside of New York. I'm in New York all the time, and I'm not carrying an umbrella, but it'll start raining, and I'll pop into a CVS or a Walgreens and grab a Totes umbrella, and then now I've got it. ecom requires us to be really forward thinking and say, hey, I actually really need an umbrella. So how do you create that mind space? How do you get, how are you guys building that demand? Are you even building that demand, or are you kind of taking advantage of the demand that exists already?
We are working to build the demand, and we're also working to drive people across categories within our brands. So thinking on totes, for example, if we already have the shopper when it comes to umbrellas, introducing her to our everywhere footwear, everywhere sand proprietary technology that is extremely durable, but also extremely lightweight, machine washable, excellent for the whole family, really. And then when you think about Isotoner, some shoppers know us as gloves, and they don't know that we're shoppers, and vice versa. Even though we've been doing both categories for a very long time. So there's work that we've done, and we need to do more of it this coming fall in terms of introducing her to the various categories within the brands. We work closely with our partners to analyze our AMC data and make sure, kind of where is she in that path? How much does she, where does she see us? How does she know about us? So I know that there is more work that we can be doing there that we're leaning into for this fall.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's always interesting because there's so much opportunity when you have really good distribution to quickly get people into the ecosystem and cross-sell them into new opportunities or introduce them. It's always education that almost seems like it's the biggest opportunity of just, did you know we have this, right?
Yeah.
The assumption a lot of marketers make is people think about our brands all the time, but the reality is that they're almost never thinking about your brands until they really need it. It's a very like subconscious thing, right?
And then I'm also so curious too, when we do see a pop in something, for example, we've got a garden clog type product within the Totes technology that's really popped. And it's like, how are people discovering this? Like, I'm so, really digging into that. What is it that that's driving people to this PDP? So different things like that are so fascinating within the e-commerce space, and make it fun.
Yeah, it's always, why did this happen so we can do it again, right?
Right.
How do we keep doing this over and over again?
Let's
and
learn
that's
really
the hard
quick
part.
and then replicate it. Yeah.
It's like something blows it out of the water, and then you're like, oh, we should do that again. But nobody knows what happened. And so you're just sitting there going, we don't know how to do it again. It was just a perfect storm of everything kind of coming together.
Perfect storm of like, the Vine reviews just hit and the weather was cold and like all of this kind of stuff just happened. Like this beautiful storm, but it all has to be there. You can't just have really strong reviews and, the inventory is not in stock or whatever, or the price is too high. It all has to be this perfect symphony. So it's a lot of work.
I think that is the piece that a lot of marketers really undervalue is just how the conversation's always, all right, well, what's the lever we're going to pull? And I'm like, no, there's no single lever. You are, to your point, a conductor, and everything needs to work together. So it's not what is the single lever we can pull, it's what are all the levers we can pull. As a media agency, we always get asked, for the answer is always, just put more money into it, it'll be fine. Like, but you don't have inventory, or your conversion rate is really bad, and it's just, you guys are like, people are just coming to the site and leaving, or the worst is no one cares about your product. Like, you guys got to rethink like what's going on, right? And so I think that's the hardest part about being an ecom, is you are the tip of the spear in terms of just insights into what is in the market, right? For brands, the ecom team, the D2C team generally has the most information about how the market, the quickest information around how the market is reacting to the brand and its products. Because it's not sell to wholesale, get into wholesale, find out what sell through from wholesale is, and then months later know what's going on, right? And I think that is a unique and exciting position for a lot of people.
For sure. And on our D2C platforms as well as Amazon, we get obviously really strong data that we don't get from some of our other e-com partners the traditional brick and mortar accounts that also have ecom, we just don't get like glance views and by day sales and all of that kind of stuff that really helps conversion, et cetera, that really helps us understand what is working, what's not working, where can we improve. So being really agile with understanding that data and how to translate it up or share it up is really critical. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that translate it and share it is the hardest part of that, is really peeling back what matters and what doesn't matter, because we can all get inundated with data and find a story wherever there is a story.
For sure. For sure. But then I say at the same time, I know that I've done this myself. I get really comfortable with the data that I have. And so then I sort of sometimes ignore other data that we should be looking at. And so constantly kind of evaluating, let's think about the metrics that we look at, and are they still the ones that we should be looking at, or is there something else that we should be thinking about? So there's never, you're always learning. You're absolutely always learning.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great point. So how do you look at your data, and how often are you revisiting your data in terms of are we looking at the right metrics? Is there a set cadence, or do you have a scorecard that you say that, like, so, our agency runs on EOS, so we've got an EOS scorecard that we monitor, and that's our like day to day. But I know a lot of ecom managers will look at their P&Ls, and that's like their go-to for what's performing well. But how are you looking at your data, and how are you shifting it over time?
We look very closely at our data in terms of consumption. So shipments into our retailers, but also consumption. So, I'm in the data daily, looking at what's going on really for the previous week and the previous, period, and what's working, what's not. Do we have enough inventory? Where are we with spend? All of those different pieces. It's probably more when I get together with other colleagues from various companies and just sharing learnings. Recently I was at an event and hearing a lot about ACOS and thinking about tacos. And my organization, we don't really talk in terms of tacos, but I want my team to be thinking about that and be thinking about how we are those measures that we should be looking at regularly? Probably yes, and sharing those up. For sure. Just kind of getting ideas from other folks in the space.
Yeah. I think education and long-term learning is always an opportunity. That's awesome. So I know we talked about a bunch of things around challenges, and tell me what you're most excited about for the year ahead. There's so much going on, and it is definitely an interesting year.
What am I most excited about for the year ahead? I would say when we think about our year here at Totes Isotoner, we're close to kicking off our next fiscal year, which starts on August 1st. And it's kind of nice that we start off our new fiscal year going into the fall season, because it is our peak season. So there's so many learnings that we had from the year that we're closing out. And we did have a very strong holiday season, especially in eCommerce. So thinking about what worked, and also knowing that we've really dialed it into what worked. So influencers are something that performed well for us. Didn't lean in. Our strategy is to lean in kind of slowly and make sure that we test and learn. So knowing that we're leaning further this year based on learnings from last year. Thinking about the Amazon high velocity events that are coming up, and what we've got, that we're preparing for with that. New product launches, new innovation that's coming. We had some really great success with new product launches in our fiscal closing. Excuse me. So thinking about that for the upcoming year is super exciting. And then just kind of the continued, like we said, like some of the continued always learning.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think this year will be really interesting. There's a lot happening. It's kind of nice that you guys have an August fiscal year, because that kind of makes it easier to plan, to be honest.
Yeah, it does make it nice. And it's sort of like, if you know that if you've had a strong first half of your year, that it makes it easier to kind of get through the spring. Or if it's been softer than you wanted, then you really got to like kick it into high gear in the spring to help make up. So it's a very kind of different mentality. But for our business, it's something that I really appreciate.
That's awesome. That's amazing. All right. Well, my last question for you is, you've been a marketing leader for a while. What advice would you give a new marketing leader, someone that's just stepping into the role?
Advice I would give to a new marketing leader. I think you've got to be really tenacious, especially when it comes to e-commerce. You can't just take something at face value. You really have
Yeah.
to dig into why is this happening? What's going on? You've got to get very strong with your analytical skills. Um, and another piece that I would say is that you've got to be humble. You've got to understand that. I mean, just a few weeks ago, there's something that one of our agencies pointed out to me, and I was like mind blown. Like I've been doing this for 10 years, and I had no idea that um, this particular learning was there. So just kind of the humility that there's so much. Nobody's an expert in this. You can be very
Yeah.
very strong in it, but um, there's always something that everybody is learning. So that humility of I know this, but I got to be open to what else might have been impacting X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's that tenacity to keep peeling the onion to figure out what's underneath it and why, and ask why, and ask why, and that's why. Especially in a world where, I mean, consumer behavior is erratic and irrational at times, and trying to make sense of it and figure it out is uh, something that you just have to constantly learn and explore. And marketing is forever changing, right? I know, and
Sure.
it's cool. So, um, Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. If someone wants to find you online, where can they find you?
LinkedIn would be the best place to find me, for sure.
Awesome. All right. I'll add that to our show notes for sure. Thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, Samir.
Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, remember to subscribe so you'll be notified of new episodes. And if you know someone who would enjoy this show, don't forget to share and leave a review. It all helps us impact more brands. If you're looking to improve your paid media, go to weareqry.com and schedule a consultation. We're always happy to chat. See you for the next one.